Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Lowdown on Low Code. I'm your host, Rob Koplowitz. I'm here with my co-host, Dave Marcus, and I want to give you just a little bit of context for today's show. So on Monday, June 9th, Analysis.Tech, who brings you Lowdown on Low Code, dropped a research report called the AI Application Platform Race. And basically, the gist of that report is that we see very different applications being built in the next few years than have been built traditionally. Some people are saying, it's the death of SaaS. We think that's probably a little hyperbolic, but suffice to say that applications are going to look very different in the future than they look today. And we highlighted a number of vendors who come from a number of different positions of strength. Who could be major players in this new landscape of applications, agentic enabled applications. One of the vendors that we highlighted in that as a potential disruptor, someone to keep an eye on, was Writer. And so with that, what I want to do is turn over to Dave and kick off our podcast for today, which features, you guessed it, Writer.
All right, great. Hey, Rob, good to see you as always. And Diego, welcome to Lowdown on Low Code. We generally start off by asking our guests how they arrived at their current position. You and I have spent quite a bit of time working with each other historically at UiPath. But even going back before that, it would be helpful just to get a feel for your journey. And maybe as part of this, if you can just maybe drop something that most people don't know about you.
Huh, You got it. Thank you, Dave. Nice to meet you, Rob. Dave, it's been a while. What memories for what a amazing period of time of software during the automation era that you and I worked through. So it's great to see you again, and I'm excited to be chatting with you all today. I can start with a little bit of background and a little bit of introduction to myself. So I'm currently the chief marketing officer at Writer. I've been in enterprise software for, I hate to say it, almost 30 years now, even though I don't look it, I think, but maybe I do, depending on the day and what I'm wearing. I started my career in the .com days. I studied business and marketing in college, and got my MBA in business strategy and marketing. But I started my career building websites for fun, and then I got my first job with a web design company in New York City during the heyday of the .com boom, and I started just working for an agency making websites for clients. But I always knew I was more on the business oriented side, more thinking about business and marketing and strategy. And then I discovered product marketing, and I realized it's kind of the perfect role for someone like me, who's kind of like right brain, left brain, tech, but business, merged all into one. And I fell in love with that function and that work. And so I did that, as an IC for several years. And by the late 2000s, early 2010s, I, started to see the New York City startup scene evolve and become something, really around Union Square Ventures successes with Etsy and Twitter and Foursquare and all the stuff that was happening there. And I got the startup itch, and I went off to do product marketing at one startup. I like to say, I've done probably 6 of them, and a third doing really well, either did really well or are doing really well. A third, kind of still going and okay, and a third were like catastrophes, right? But that's probably a good batting average for startups. And the first one was, kind of a mess, but I learned a lot. It was chaotic. I rose through the ranks, and I became a marketing leader in that first startup, and then I took it off from there. It's been quite a journey. So I like I said, I've done a couple of. I got into the startup world, started doing startup stuff. It always centered around work. I found myself really attracted to technology that helped people work better, or help people find work. I did a company called Work Market, which was a freelancer management system that helped people manage freelance work and help companies find freelancers. And then fast forwarding, I met Daniel Dinez from UiPath, and We had a wonderful conversation about where the world is going, the future of work, the potential of automation. And then he introduced me to Bobby Patrick, the CMO, and we just knew this is the place. I knew this is the place I wanted to be. Joined UiPath during the Series B, and worked there all throughout the IPO and post IPO, and really got a front row seat to how technology changes work. And I'll stop there, but that's the precipice of me joining Writer, and kind of a quick version of my journey.
Awesome. Rob, let me hand over to you.
So, all right. So, Diego, you may feel old, but my journey started with plugging memory chips into memory boards for PCs. So, okay, you're just a pup. But let's talk about history for a minute. So, maybe a little personal history. So, ChatGPT launches.
Yeah.
I'm having dinner with some good friends, one of which is on your board. And she's telling me that her firm has recently invested in this new company, Writer, that's going to take a very different approach and focus not so much on public LLMs, but really try to provide much more specialized business type content, as well as specialized business type research, right? So I think it's fair to say Writer has done very well in pursuit of that goal. But you've kind of drifted a little bit. You guys have taken some different paths. Can you give us a sense of where Writer has gone since then, and where Writer might be going?
Yeah, absolutely. So you are right in saying that we took a different path. So our co-founders, Wasim Al-Sheikh and May Habib, they've been working together since 2014. Their first startup was a translation, an AI translation product, and they were working with large enterprises on AI translation services. So they got a front row seat to see just how complex it is to deploy technology inside an enterprise. I know your audience probably is well aware of this, but for the typical person that interacts with the business has no idea how complicated things are underneath the covers, right? And so they had a lot of experience, a lot of pain working with big enterprise customers with their first business. And when the LLM, the Transformer white paper, was released, in the late 2010s, they immediately saw the potential for the technology. They saw the future. They saw they had an idea what LLMs could be and do down the road. But they also knew, given their experience with enterprises, like getting this stuff into production in a real production grade version of this into a business is not trivial. That's really complicated. And if you're going to pursue that, you have to make a lot of decisions, and you have to build in a way that is conducive to the needs of the enterprise, and the complexity of the enterprise. And so from day one, we have been looking to and building our technology in a way that meets the specific needs of the Fortune 500 for accuracy, reliability, and compliance, as well as for ease of deployment and sophistication of deployment. And that's really what kind of set us apart from day one. And the journey itself Writer has evolved like crazy since the company started in 2020. Early days were Grammarly like, product to content marketing product to generative AI applications to now really, some of the most sophisticated AI agents and really actually deployed AI agents today. And that's where we have evolved to. That's where we kind of stand now.
That's great, Diego. Thanks. Over to you, Dave.
So, Diego, just with that in mind, this is a really noisy space right now. Every single day there's either a new set of startups or there are a new set of announcements regarding, AI, large language models, agentic technology of some kind, even though most people don't really even understand what that means. And at the same point in time, this year particularly, we're starting to see that although everyone last year started doing AI agents in some way or another. This year, people are really turning around and saying, we need to see value. We
Yeah.
need to see differentiation. And so, what does this term AI agents actually mean to you and Ryder? And how do you feel you differentiate?
Yeah. So, you know, to us, and what I think the proper, definition of an AI agent is is AI with agency. Like it's right in the term, it's right in the word. It's much like people don't think about it, but generative AI tells you what the difference between generative and declarative AI is. Right? Declarative is, and when we worked at UiPath, it was a very declarative type of workflow, right? It was, ABC, always do it this way, or with low variance. Generative was like, well, there is no declarative workflow. It's going to figure it out as it goes. Agentic AI is very similar in that context, in that it's AI systems that can operate independently, reason through decisions, and perform tasks with minimal human intervention, i.e., giving them agency. So, on one front, it's the ability to actually make decisions and carry out work beyond just generating something and giving it to a person. It's the ability to execute on the task, given a set of tools and instructions to figure out how to do it themselves. In addition, I think that we have this concept of level 1, 2, 3, 4 agents, and level 1 is the very simple chatbot, which is based on the LLMs in training. How does it answer you based on its training? Level 2 is integrating with your knowledge and your data. Level 3 is being able to carry out tasks. So that's what I'm talking about. A true agent is really like a level 3 agent and beyond. And level 4 is when the agent can work with other agents and collaborate with other agents to accomplish broad goals and automate processes end to end. I think what you're going to find a lot, and what we're seeing with agentic, is that the agents are defined very narrowly. They do something very specific, and then they're stitched together and orchestrated by sort of an Uber agent or a meta agent that is orchestrating the process for a multi-agent task. That's how we think about it, in broad terms.
Awesome. So before I hand over to Rob, I just have one other related question. So from a writer point of view, Rob talked earlier on about the sort of evolution that you guys have been going through. I would say that many people still know Writer today as an organization that, does intelligent, whether you want to call them agents or not, but uh, facilitates intelligent work that was primarily driven by content creation, whether that be in research and other areas. But you've evolved, and so what does that evolution look like?
Yeah. So absolutely. Like our heritage is in content generation. And, if there is a agentic workflow that has a piece of content in there, that's part of it, which most do, there's really no better solution, right? Like we just hands down, we know those workflows better than anyone in the world. And so that is a very strong capability for us. But we're increasingly being put into more and more middle and back office type of workflows that are not necessarily content oriented, but leverage our agents' abilities to access tools and make decisions and actually carry out actions um, in conjunction with content producing, but often not content producing. You know, the it stems from content production is just one of the outputs of our generative AI capabilities. And it stems from, and I didn't answer your second part of your question earlier, our immutable architectural advantages. I think people know this now about us, but they might not have known this. We build our own LLMs. We're not reliant on any, Anthropic or OpenAI or Cohere or anyone for the LLM. The secret sauce of what makes our agents work so well in the enterprise is not that we've been building for the enterprise from day one, but because we've been building for the enterprise from day one, we've controlled all of the core technology ourselves, and we've built it in a way that we know is performant to the enterprise. So we bring all of the LLMs, the data integration tools, everything that you need in one package, and that helps us differentiate and really deliver on what we set, what we promise, which is high quality, reliable workflows.
Got it. Rob.
So Diego, I want to shift gears a little bit. Actually, I want to go back to a little earlier as you were talking about stringing these agents together. So your CEO, May Habib, really strong thought leader in the space. If we look at what May's writing in social media, LinkedIn, other places, we see a lot of focus on orchestration, right? And at times it feels like she's kind of getting a little BPMN-y, a term we use here quite often,
Yeah, say that.
which warms my heart because I'm
Yeah.
an old digital process automation guy.
Yeah.
And there's a very formal definition of orchestration around that world. There's an emerging definition around orchestration of multiple agents to accomplish goals. And we actually feel that both of these are important constructs. Where is Ryder going with orchestration? What is your take on orchestration? What can we expect from you in the future?
Yeah, it's funny because I am like, if we search Slack for the person who uses the term workflow the most, it's probably me. And it's just like this is an evolution of those tools, right? It's different. Don't get me wrong, it's different, but it's attacking the same pain, right? It's trying to make work more efficient, more effective, and really re-architect the work. Something you said in the introduction really resonates with me. You know, I think software itself is, going to change completely because of agents. And instead of let's go buy an application, let's go look at some SaaS to solve this problem. I think in 5 years, maybe even less, the question, what you're going to say is like, what agent do we need to do that? Let's go get it. Let's go put an agent together to, facilitate that workflow. And so I think it's really an evolution of the BPM to automation to now agents. But in terms of orchestrating work, but the key here is that, we're going from disparate, like orchestration takes us from disparate task activities to actually automating the complete process that cuts across people, systems, and agents. And what I love about it is that we're going to work from the ground up and say, what is the right process here? What is the right intervention from a human? When do we pull the human in the loop? When do we let the agent go ahead and make decisions? We're going to, do all of that through agentic workflows, and we'll have them connected in long running processes that are automated end to end, and really give the organization a much cleaner round trip through the process, with agents doing the orchestration.
So, yeah, one of the other things I mentioned was, is it overly hyperbolic to say SaaS is dead, but applications are going to look really different? So, to your point, Diego, 5 years from now, are we going to be continuing to invest in business applications in the way that we once did? And I think the answer is absolutely not, right? These agents cross organizational boundaries, they cross legacy systems, they create new opportunities. So it's going to be a very different world. And take a look at analysis.tech, because this is what we dove into in this research that we dropped on June 9th. All right, Dave, can you take us into commercial?
Yeah, sure. So with that in mind, just a really quick commercial break. So for those of you who have seen these particular podcasts, obviously Analysis.tech has been doing a range of these podcasts over the last 15, 16 months. But at the same point in time, we also are a specialized boutique analyst firm focusing very specifically on this low code, next generation automation and agentic AI space. That's our focus. The team is very geared to be able to do that. And we do everything from these type of podcasts all the way through to research-based activities for either vendors or for end customers or in our own right. Rob mentioned one of the recent pieces of research that we have out, and we encourage you to go to analysis.tech/research, take a look at that and other research we've recently released as well. Provide your input, give us some feedback, and certainly, subscribe to the information that we make available to you, and give us a bunch of feedback as to what you might like to see as well, whether it be in the context of these podcasts or generalized research. So with that in mind, let me hand back to Rob, and we can continue with Diego.
So Diego, you guys, I understand that your roots are in the enterprise. So you've made that point a couple times.
That's funny.
With that in mind, right? We have to be very mindful, very careful about how we deploy applications. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about governance. You know, we have to maintain data, we have to access data. There's privacy, there's security, and then of course there's this concept. I can't remember the terminology used. I would use the term probabilistic outcomes versus deterministic outcomes. There's a place where agents fit. There's a place where agents could potentially introduce risk. How is Ryder thinking about guiding me through this journey, and giving me the tools and advice I need around governance?
So I appreciate you recognizing and pointing out the extreme positioning on enterprise. It's true. It's right. That's intentional. Um, when we work with the Franklin Templetons of the world, on one side of the spectrum, and then the Victoria's Secret of the world on the other side of the spectrum, governance, when we're deploying a custom agent at Franklin Templeton to automate investment fund reporting, and we're pulling data from a bunch of internal databases and then publishing to the web long form market commentaries, or if we're working with Victoria's Secret and we're optimizing search engines and we're getting products posted live to their retail outlets, their online retailers that they work with. You absolutely, governance is like, if not more important than building and user experience. Like, that's where these conversations get really, really deep, really fast, and the customers and before that the prospects really kind of kick the tires around Ryder. For us, we have our platform, we call it AIHQ, and AIHQ is the place to build, activate, and supervise AI agents at scale. And supervise is the key in terms of when we talk to the CIOs and we talk to the enterprise on what they care about. It's where you have the governance to set deployment policies, compliance guardrails, and access controls for the agents, and where you get all that observability that tells you what they're doing. It tells you what happened, what did they do, what did they access, how do they access it. It gives you all that visibility and observability that is absolutely crucial. And so that is one of the three pillars of our platform, and it is absolutely vital for any success in the enterprise. So we have a huge focus on it.
That's great. Thanks, Diego. Dave, back to you.
Sure. So, Diego, you mentioned earlier on that Ryder's one of we know that Ryder's one of relatively few companies that have invested as heavily as you have in your own LLM technology. There are arbitrary other companies out there that have done some work in this area, but for the most part, other than that, they're relying on more mainstream public LLMs, if I can use that term. But there also is a view in the industry that says that these sort of public LLMs, whether they be from OpenAI, Anthropic, Mistral, or others, will ultimately get so much investment that they become not just broad, but also more specialized in nature. And that at the end of the day, this LLM technology will just become commodity and everyone will kind of be using it in a different way. And I'd love to get your input and opinion on that, because in some ways, what you profess to the market is a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two angles on this that we have a lot of conviction around. First off, the big model providers are just not transparent enough in how their models are trained and how they operate for the enterprise. We provide complete transparency, and it's a really important requirement in the enterprise, is that there's transparency in how our models work. And so we've, that's that we can't go to a large company and say, we know what's happening with your workflow if we don't own our own model, right? So we can't deliver on our value proposition of that absolute certainty and comfort and trust that is necessary without providing our own model. So regardless of how, quote unquote, commoditized models may become, unless you own your own, you can't make that claim. And I don't think you can trust the company if they're not, providing their own model. So, the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, they have their own model. Whether or not they're transparent and trustworthy, could be a matter of opinion. But if you're talking about another platform that's built on top of those, forget it. Like, you just can't. If they don't own their own models, how could you trust that the vendor for an agent builder is actually delivering on their promises of compliance and governance? So that's one. Two, our customers, the biggest reason that Writer took off in the past couple of years is that when companies went and built their own generative AI stacks, now agentic stacks, and they incorporated a model, from here, and then security and guardrails from there, and graph base or vector rag from this other vendor, and they tried to stitch together their own platform. They got just caught up in the spokes of building a stack as opposed to getting to value. And so what happened was we came in to all of those failed experiments where, after early 2024, the boards came to the CIOs and said, what have you done? We gave you 15 million, 20 million to figure out generative AI in 2023. And we got, some little workflow into production and it's not impactful. What are you doing? And the reality was that they were building stacks and not delivering actual production grade workflows. So that's where we came in and said, look, we got everything you need. Stop stitching together all these different pieces. It's full stack. It's all in one. It's end to end. We will give you what you need to go and build fast and get to ROI fast. And that has been the winning formula for us. So I'm not sure I fully answered your question. I might have strayed a little bit. But building a model is just absolutely core. Now, if there's models that we need to integrate, we do have some capability to work with third-party agents and models through our orchestrator. But by and large, the fastest way to value is to just use our own models, use our full stack, and start building in our agent builder.
Before I hand over to Rob, I just want to expand on that a little, getting a little technical just for a second. Can you talk to Writer's approach to open source, and then also, what's your view on these, new, I'll use the term standards that are emerging around, MCP, A2A, etc.
Yeah, we'll support them. We're actually part of the teams building those standards. I think as time goes on, more and more integration into all those standards are just, you have to. Like, there's just there's no way to actually own all of the workflows that are going to happen in enterprise. Like, that's the reality, right? Like, would I love to sit here and say we are going to be every agent? Every agent is going to run through Writer. I'd love that to be the case. I think it would help if it's actually better for you if you just have one platform. But we know that there's just a lot of investment going on right now, and there will be agents that take off and become part of the business and are useful, and we have to integrate and work with them and be orchestrated. We can still orchestrate those agents if for a bigger process, but if we need to integrate and supervise them, we can, we'll be able to do that as well. So, we're in favor of that interoperability, and more to come on that.
Got it. And I think certainly from our perspective as well, we're certainly of the view that there's not necessarily a winner in agents. There is certainly potentially a winner at a higher level. But from an agent point of view, people are going to deploy hundreds to thousands of agents to do a whole range of things from many, many different players. And then the goal is to figure out how to coordinate those all together.
That's right. And that's where supervised comes into play too. It's that the capabilities that we're building there are going to be very, very helpful for looking at what all the agents are doing. So you'll build and activate Writer agents, and then you'll supervise across the board. And then, hopefully over time we win more and more of that, first build.
Awesome. Rob, back to you for final thoughts.
Okay. So perfect segue. One more question, Diego, and then we'll let you get on with your day. So Ultimately, analysis.tech exists to give the market guidance on what this new class of applications is going to look like, and how organizations should be preparing for this. And there's some pretty, there's some pretty substantial decisions that need to be made around how to architect these types of solutions. We feel that Ryder is in a very interesting position, and we positioned you, strongly in this report, and with our other vendor clients. They need to understand your position, because we think you're going to be in a unique position to provide really strong, purpose-built, business value-driven agents, right? We think you're going to do that extremely well, and that folks are going to want to consume those agents within their enterprises. There's a number of ways you can do this, right? I can do this through other orchestration engines. I can do this through other platforms. And you could sort of be the Intel inside of agents. Now, you've talked a lot about your orchestration capabilities, but the full rubric would be, integration and application development capabilities for more deterministic things, and more standardized automation capabilities. These are the type of things that are going to be required for building end-to-end solutions, end-to-end process-driven solutions. How far does Ryder want to go in this world? Or are you just going to be, focused on the agent and the orchestration space?
It's hard to answer that. I know. Sorry, it's a cop out.
No. The question wasn't entirely fair, but look, it's we're organic. What are you thinking about?
Yeah. Here's my thoughts, and this is me. We're early days of strategy. We're building. Our plan is to build an enduring company, right? And if work is going to be architected differently in the future, it's already happening, but it's going to happen. That is going to continually evolve. What AI is in 2025 is slightly different than what it was in 24, and slightly different in 23. This is going to evolve. We are going to evolve with it. Our goal is not to, have a small, AI agent vendor. Like, we think that this can become the platform for work. And we, going very back, I can help you tie this whole podcast up, going way back to the early days, the early part of this conversation, what that looks like to roll out an agent to handle a new or re-architect an existing or create a new workflow, that's going to be completely redone. And we think that that's a massive category into itself, where we will add capabilities and grow our product set over time to meet where the actual market goes in that respect.
I love it, Diego. So by the way, great answer.
Yep.
And we're really excited to see that evolve. Dave, take us out.
Awesome. So Diego, as always, thank you for the time today. We're looking forward to see where Ryder goes. As Rob says, we are pretty big fans of what you've been doing and where you're going. For those people listening in that don't know much about Ryder, go and learn a bit more. We will, over the next couple of weeks and months, be focusing more and more on what I'm going to call AI native players in the space, and Ryder certainly represents a leading one of those. And so, watch out for these, and continue to learn. I think it's a matter right now of being able to, dive into what some of these vendors have to offer. Don't just go and do a theoretical analysis, because this is all about real value, and it's about demonstrating that as quickly as possible. So, Diego, thanks again. And Rob, as always, we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thank you, folks. Thanks for the work you're all doing, educating the market on this. It's complicated. So the industry appreciates the uplifting that you're doing. Thanks. And thanks for having me on.